Swords! Sword, 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 swords, sword, swords, swords, sword, sword, swords, sword, swords, sword, 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 swords, swords, sword, swords, sword, 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 swords, swords. Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking101 here, and today, we're not talking about shields, we're talking about sword. Alright, that's all you need. It doesn't even need to be an acronym or something. It doesn't have to be like, strategic, weapon-oriented, real defense. It doesn't need to be anything. It's just sword, okay? Whoever came up with the name of that, it might have been X-Drake, it might have been Sengoku, it might have been some Marine 50 years ago. Whoever came up with the name, they know where it's at, okay? Because when sword rolls into town, you know to drop your fudge and get going. Alright, so this is an organization we just found out about in the last chapter. Very interesting organization, just beyond the name itself. So let's talk about this. Rather, let's talk about other covert, undercover Marines that could possibly be part of SWORD. Because we don't even know SWORD's goal yet. We know that they work under the Marines. They're like a top-secret organization inside of the Marines themselves. From what it seems, they are not connected to the CP-Zero in any way. To the point where Drake was actually really surprised that they were, like, CP-Zero was in Wano, and he was reporting that back to Kobe, like, oh yeah, CP-Zero is here, I saw them walking around the Capitol, and Kobe's like, whoa, what? So, they're not, like, working in tandem there, so don't think of it like the Aegis Zero is like, we are the shields of the Tenryubito, and the world government also created SWORD to be the sword of the Tenryubito, or anything like that. No, I'm gonna stay with my original theory so far, that SWORD was created, I'm thinking by Sengoku, maybe a few years ago, might have been decades ago, because Sengoku was a fleet admiral for a while there. I'm thinking he created it because he realized how corrupted the world government was, and he wanted something that he could control personally. He didn't want it, because he can't control the Marines however he desires, because the Gorosei will be breathing down his neck. Alright, so maybe Sengoku was like, alright, maybe he's thinking in the long game here. He's like, I need to figure out some way to take down the Tenryubito if necessary, or at least have a select group of, like, the best of the best of the best that I can give direct orders to. You know, like the Gorosei cannot issue orders to SWORD. It's like SWORD has a very specific hierarchical structure, alright? So it's like very loyal people to the founder of, or the captain of the organization, okay? So I'm gonna say it's Sengoku, okay? Because Drake, as we know right now, is the captain of SWORD, which he's the leader, I guess, of that particular organization, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was the founder. It could be that he decided to start it, and he went undercover, he left the Marines, he did something really, like, bad in the Marines. I hypothesized he killed one of his superior officers or something, so he's like, oh my god, Drake assassinated, the Vice Admiral Blibbity Blue, so he's a traitor now, we need to find him, and then Drake left and became a pirate and became a really well-known pirate. But the only problem with that is there's very clearly the connection between Drake and Kobe. Kobe is still a bona fide member of the Marines. He just got promoted to Rear Admiral, in fact, and Drake and him having a conversation and them, having be part of the same organization seems to imply that Drake was not the one that started it. There was somebody else that started it before Drake came along, and he was, like, Drake was just appointed the captain of that order. Possibly his first mission was to defect from the Marines, pretend to be a pirate, so you can get on in with, like, the Yonko and figure out what's going on there, or if it's necessary, you might even have to go up against the Tenryubito or the world government. It makes more sense for a pirate to do that than a member of the Marines to do that, okay? So, right. So, the only two members that we know about so far are Drake and Kobe, but that in and of itself kind of lends some, ideas on who else could be a member. For example, and I can't believe I'm actually throwing this out there, but Helmeppo. Helmeppo and Kobe have been working together ever since they joined the Marines. They got, at Shelltown is when they first met, and then after the whole events with Captain Morgan and everything, Commander Ripper, he, took pity on them and gave them, jobs as chore boys in the Marines. Commander Ripper was basically looking at them, and they're like, well, you two aren't really good for much, but you did help out Shelltown. You did get rid of that asshole Morgan, so I'll give you, you guys can be janitors, basically, alright? It's not much, much, but it's the best I can do, alright? I can't start you out as commanders or something, right? So, Kobe and Helmeppo have been together all throughout their journey in Shelltown, and then Garp eventually found them, and then began training them both. Obviously, Kobe was always the Marine that had the higher rank. He definitely had more, promise than Helmeppo did. Kobe was the one that unlocked observation at Marineford, and he's got all these skills now with the Rokushiki techniques. I'm pretty sure Helmeppo could do some of that. He might have a little bit of observation. He might know the Rokushiki a little bit, but really it comes to Kobe. Kobe is just like the stronger fighter in that regard. But that doesn't change the fact that pretty much every single time we see Kobe, Helmeppo is right next to him, okay? So they're more like partners in the Marines, okay? So if Kobe is a member of this top secret covert government or Marine operation called SWORD, then Helmeppo, you kind of have to just, like, throw him in there as well. I mean, I guess it's possible that he might not know about it, but, the fact that Kobe and Helmeppo work together so closely, and considering they've been friends for so long, you think Helmeppo would definitely be in on this, okay? So, I'm gonna throw it out there. In fact, this might be Oda's way of showing Helmeppo as, like, a severe badass. Maybe not so much as Kobe is, but we might have, like, a serious because we haven't really seen Helmeppo get into, like, a serious battle since the time skip. We saw him going up against some random people at Marineford. We saw him clash with Zoro very briefly back at Enies Lobby, but that was pre-time skip. Marineford was pre-time skip too, so who knows? I don't know what level freaking Helmeppo might be at right now. Helmeppo might be like Arlong level, where he can like take down Arlong no problem. I mean, I know that's not much considering where the Straw Hats are right now, but considering where Helmeppo started out, I mean, that would be impressive, right? It kind of would be, honestly, so maybe we might get to see that. Alright, so now let's talk about Sengoku and Garp, alright? If we're just gonna go along that Sengoku was the one that founded it because, Drake was a pirate for many years, well before the time skip. He was a well-known pirate. That was before Sakazuki took over as the fleet admiral. Maybe SWORD is something that's been around for centuries, and it's just been going through the different generations of Marines. It's possible, but I like to think, I just have this feeling it's a relatively new organization. It hasn't been around since, like, the Void Century. It just came into being maybe, 20 years ago at the latest, whatever, and Sengoku was the one that started it. So if Sengoku was the one that created this special operation, that would mean Garp would probably be in on this, because Garp and Sengoku, they've kind of the same thing with Kobe and Helmeppo. I mean, they've been partners in the Marines for a very long time now. We got to see them beat down Shiki. They joined up at the same time along with Suru. I was kind of throwing Suru in there too as a possibility, because all three of them kind of joined together there. Garp is definitely somebody that could keep a secret. Also, right now in the Marines, Sengoku and Garp, they technically do not have official positions. Sengoku is now a general inspector, and Garp is just an instructor, okay? They might call on him to do certain things, like escort royalty to Reverie, as he did with the Ryugu, kingdom, the royal family, like Neptune and Shirahoshi and the Neptune brothers and everybody. He might do that every now and then, but he doesn't have that official rank of Vice Admiral anymore, okay? Neither does Sengoku have the official rank of Fleet Admiral, right? But they're still technically part of the Marines, so this would be kind of the ideal position to be in, kind of laying low right now, and give everybody, like, a false sense of security, like they're not really that active anymore, but then behind the scenes, Sengoku is still issuing orders to Drake and to Kobe and to SWORD, and Garp is in on this as well. Now, that would also be a really good way of thrusting Garp back into the action. Garp shows up and he's like, Special Agent Monkey D. Garp, SWORD. They'd be like, okay, yeah, I could kind of see that, right? Now, if we're gonna connect Sengoku and Garp, there's a few people that they're connected to. It's like a spider web that just stretches out. Here's an idea. What about, he's dead now, but what about Roshinate? What about Corazon? Sengoku and Corazon, that was basically his adopted son. It was his adopted son, really. And Corazon became a commander in the Marines, which is a pretty high rank. It's one rank, I think, below captain is commander. So he had a high rank in the Marines. And, he was doing kind of undercover operations with Sengoku. At the time that was going on, we were supposedly thinking that that was something just between Sengoku and Corazon. Because Roshinate, of course, he was Doflamingo's brother. So he would have a personal reason to infiltrate Doflamingo's crew, figure out what's going on, and bring him to justice, right? So we just thought maybe it was Roshinate's idea to infiltrate Doflamingo, and, he was going to report back to Sengoku, and they were just kind of, Sengoku and Roshinate were just in on this together. It was just that. But no, it might have turned out to be like he was a member of SWORD, and, he might have still personally wanted to go do this. He's like, no, Sengoku, let me be the one to infiltrate the Doflamingo family, because, he's my brother. He would probably let me in, and I might be able to get a lot of hot news on him before, we capture him. This is the best shot we got, basically. So, he's dead now, of course, but I think Roshinate, if this organization was started by Sengoku, it would make sense that his adopted son, Roshinate, would have been in Sword as well. Going to connections to Garp, outside of just, we had Kobe and Helmeppo, obviously, do you guys know about Bogard? Bogard is the, Humphrey Bogart-looking dude from Casablanca. He has the trench coat, he has the hat, he has a sword. I don't think Humphrey Bogart used a sword in that movie, but whatever, Bogart has one. And he's sort of like Garp's assistant. He first makes his appearance during the cover series, the Diary of Kobe Meppo. Garp appears. Bogart is usually not far behind. In fact, it was Bogart was the guy that was originally teaching Kobe and Helmeppo, like, swords and, like, practicing with the bokens and everything. Garp probably let, Bogart teach them the basics before Garp started with the fisting lessons himself. But yeah, Bogart's always been a really cool Marine to me, just because the way he looks. He was also the one that captured Buggy when Buggy went into that cave because he thought that's where Captain John's treasure was, and it was actually a Marine outpost. Bogart was there, and he ended up capturing Buggy and throwing him an impel down, okay? So he pops up every now and then. He seems to be, Garp's assistant. Maybe Garp personally trained Bogart when he was growing up, and he just felt really strong loyalty to Garp, and that's like, I'll be your right hand from now on. If that's the case, and if Garp is connected to Sword, I'm also going to throw Bogart in there too. He's just a character I wish would be fleshed out a little bit more. We don't have to find out everything about his backstory or whatever, although if Oda wants to, he could just use the backstory from Casablanca. Just like, this one day I met a girl. It's like, okay, and that's the story of Bogart, right? Okay, that would actually make a lot of sense. But no, I just want to see more of that character, because really cool look. He uses a sword, so that's neat, right? So those are just connections there. Now, talking about other high-ranking Marine officials, a lot of people, in fact, I love how fans are so good to pick clean, like, okay, there's a new organization introduced in One Piece, so we're going to pick clean anything that might reference that back in the story in earlier parts. And a lot of people found this. I'm sure you might have seen this already. If not, this is the cover page from chapter 592, titled Yell. And this is just Akainu doing some, bonsai tree. He's like trimming a tree and Kizaru's behind him. But this is the first time we actually get to see Akainu's full tattoo. I think the only time so far. He has that full, like, flower tattoo on his arm. But on his other arm, his right arm, you can see he has a small tattoo of a black sword. Now, just because the organization is called Sword, and Akainu has a sword tattoo, doesn't automatically mean he's part of that. We don't even know if that's an indicator of that. We just know the name of the organization is Sword. That would be like saying, the Aegis Zero, that means shield, so therefore they have to have Lucci has to have a shield tattoo somewhere on his body. That doesn't mean anything, but it's an interesting thing to mention, considering that he is a high-ranking Marine. He is the highest-ranking Marine. He's the Fleet Admiral right now. I don't know if he would be for that. I don't know if he would be for the whole thing with, like, oh yeah, X-Drake, leave the Marines and pretend to be a pirate. I don't know if that would fit in line with Akainu's absolute justice creed. That's a little tricky with that. So I'm not really sure. He does have a tattoo of a sword, but we don't know. If we saw the same tattoo on Kobe or Drake, then that would be a clear indicator, but we haven't seen that. Also, to mention Aokiji, because Aokiji's a big one, because Aokiji left the Marines kind of similar to what X-Drake did, and now he's working for the Blackbeard Pirates, apparently. So it's like, this is the perfect candidate to be a member of Sword. And during the movie Film Z, we did get to see Aokiji, almost naked, in the bathtub, in the hot springs, when he comes out, and we see his whole body. We don't see a sword tattoo anywhere. And I know that was a movie, but Oda still has a say in how the character looks. In fact, I think that was Aokiji's first ever appearance post-time skip was in the movie Film Z. Yeah, because I think that came out, that came out before Punk Hazard did. Because I think the tie-in for that movie was in between Fishman Island and Punk Hazard. So I think the movie came out before Aokiji made his first proper appearance at the end of Punk Hazard, right? So Oda was definitely involved with how Aokiji was going to look because, you know, this was his first appearance post time skip. So I think if Oda really wanted him to have like a sword tattoo, I'm just thinking he would have depicted that on him, right? So like I said though, it's like you have to have a sword tattoo to be a member of Sword. That's a connection that you're just making just because of the sake of the name, right? It's possible. It's also possible, I was thinking, you know, Aokiji did lose a leg. It is possible that maybe the sword tattoo was on his leg that got blown off by Akainu. You know, maybe, who knows? Maybe that is a stipulation, maybe it isn't. We don't know. So yeah, now, those are, I think, the ones that are more obvious. Aokiji and Akainu. Akainu because he has the tattoo, Aokiji because he already left the Marines. Maybe he's trying to get in good with Blackbeard and then, you know, taking out Blackbeard behind the scenes. I mean, that would make perfect sense for, like, that covert operation of Sword. We talked about Kobe and Helmeppo. How about Smoker and Tashigi? Because if we're talking about members that have to be extraordinarily loyal to the cause, to the point where X-Drake was so loyal to the cause of Sword, whatever that goal is, he left the Marines and is now seen as a traitor to most of them, and most of the world sees him as a traitor. His epithet is Red Flag Diaz Drake, indicating that he is a traitor. X-Drake loved the Marines, apparently, from what we see from his childhood. He really loved to be a Marine. So, that was like his dream growing up. So, this is somebody that's willing to toss his dream aside for the goals of this organization. So loyalty is obviously a big thing. Smoker is always shown to be very loyal, to the point where even after the events at Alabasta, he was really distraught with how the world government handled that. He didn't feel like he deserved it. He didn't feel like he deserved all the accolades and the promotion he was given, because he wasn't the one that took down Crocodile. It was Luffy, and he knew it was Luffy. And even when we see him later in Punk Hazard, it seems Smoker and Luffy, they're not like best friends or anything, but Smoker's beginning to see the reality of the world, right? And he's very closely tied to Aokiji. Aokiji and Smoker are like old drinking buddies or whatever. So, I mean, if you found out Smoker was going to be a member of this organization, I would definitely be for that. Tashigi as well, because Smoker and Tashigi are partners. They're always together. And plus Tashigi, I mean, she uses swords. So, your character, Bogard uses a sword, he's in Sword. Tashigi uses a sword, she's in Sword. Freaking Aokiji technically has an ice sword, he's in Sword. So Akainu, tell you what, if Akainu busts out a badass magma saber, then he can be in Sword. Kobe, we didn't see you using a sword. X-Drake, he uses a sword, or a rapier. But a rapier counts as a sword. Wait, does it? Hold on, let me just check my sword encyclopedia that I totally am looking at right now. Yep, rapiers are swords. Awesome. Okay, so, yeah. I mean, like, okay then, right? That's how that works. Tashigi could be a member if Smoker's a member. Helmeppo could be a member if Kobe's a member. Garp can be a member if Sengoku was a member or if he founded it. Beyond that, though, I mean, let me know some other ideas. I was kind of looking down the list of Marines and even former Marines. I was kind of trying to see it look and make... Oh, and Tsuru as well. I mentioned Osuru. But I was looking down that list and just like, okay, which ones are going to fit here? But I don't want a lot of them to be in this organization, because if this really is as covert as I think it is, to the point where it's even underneath the world government's radar, they can't have a lot of Marines working for this organization. Just the ones that we know so far, X-Drake, Kobe, and then the ones I'm hypothesizing here, so Sengoku, Garp, Bogard, Akainu, Aokiji, Smoker, Tashigi, Helmeppo, Corazon, that's 11, and Corazon is dead, so that would be like 10 members. Like, I'd be okay with that. I mean, like, less than a dozen, definitely, considering that this organization is supposed to be as covert as it is. Aegis Zero has, like, a decent amount of members from what we've seen. I'm guessing at least all the former members of CP9 are now part of CP0. We don't know that for certain, like Kumadori or Jabra, but Kaku's a member, Lucci's a member, even Spondum's a member, so Hattori's a member. So I guess it would make sense for the other members of CP9 to be a member of CP0. Plus, we have those other 3 random dudes we saw at Dressrosa. Plus, we have Stussy is also a member of Zero. So it seems like, yeah, but that's an organization that the world government personally handles, and the Tenryubito probably enlist like help with that. All right, this seems to be way more under the radar here, right? Okay, so how is this going to go, though? Like, what's the goal here? The overall goal of Sword? I think, like I said with Sengoku, the basis for the organization's creation was, number one, have an elite squad that listened directly to Sengoku. And I think the second one was to attempt to take down the Yonko because that's what Drake's kind of doing right now. Like, he's the captain of Sword, and his whole thing, it seems to be like, leave the Marines, become a pirate, attack Kaido's island, get in good with Kaido, become one of his high-ranking members, and then, you know, infiltrate and then subterfuge. That seems to be the point. But another focus on it would be to just keep an eye on CP0 and the Tenryubito and see what they're really doing and behind the scenes and get some news in on them. Because you know the stuff that the Tenryubito do, they're not going to tell all the Marines about what their dealings are. Sword's goal is to find out the stuff that the world government is not telling the Marines. You know, to find out, I was like, oh, hey, yeah, the Gorosei are planning another cleansing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not good. You know, we haven't heard about that yet. You know, like, that may be kind of things what Sword is there for. There might have been members of Sword at Reverie. There might have been Marines that were working undercover there. Now, keep in mind, there might be other Marines that I'm just not thinking of right now because we don't know a lot about them. Like a Vice Admiral. Like, we don't know anything about Vice Admiral, like, Onigumo, the spider dude. Maybe Onigumo is a member of Sword. He has, like, 8 arms. He has 8 swords. He's definitely a member of Sword. But it's just like, we don't know enough about him. But if he showed up and be like, Vice Admiral Onigumo, secret sword operative, I'd be like, okay, I mean, we don't know much about him, so, I mean, that makes sense, right? It's nothing to, like, contradict something else that we've seen. So, some Vice Admirals might be in on it. Like, Momosagi and, the brown pig dude. You know, the ones from the SBS, you know, Pink Bunny and Brown Pig that appeared at, you know, the Red Port, you know, talking to Garp and everybody. You know, Chaton, that's it, Chaton. They might also be members of Sword. They were created at SBS, and then they had a cameo in Film Gold, and now they're actual canon Marines, and now they're members of this covert operation. That's a total thing that Oda would do, right? Okay. So, yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. I'm just gonna leave it off right there. I think that's a good place to stop, just because, yeah, this is a very mysterious organization so far. You know, we probably might not find out more about Sword in terms of what their goals are or who all is part of it, maybe until the end of Wano or maybe the next act break or something. We're still definitely going to see Drake in Wano because he's there. He apparently left Law out. Maybe he's trying to recruit Law into Sword. Do you have to be technically a Marine to be member of Sword? It's an undercover Marine operation, but does that mean you have to be a Marine to be a member? I don't think that's the case with Law or anything. I don't think Drake's trying to recruit him. I think Drake might be just like, okay, I'm going to let Law loose because that helps our plan. You know, that might help our plan in taking down Big Mom and Kaido in some way. Right, it has nothing to do with Law joining. It's just like, this helps me out, right? So that could be the case there. But in terms of finding out more about it, that might not be until after the story. But we'll see Drake definitely in the meantime. Unless next chapter we get another buffer and we get another, like, seeing what's going on with Kobe and seeing, like, him attack, you know, Amazon Lily and what the other members of the Marines are at. Maybe we'll get some new Sword members introduced because this is a whole new organization that Oda just kind of dropped in our laps. Like, by the way, Sword's a thing now. I'm like, oh, okay, we have Sword. We have Sword. All right. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Let me know below who you think on this list or if there's another Marine is a member of Sword. I just like saying Sword. Sword, sword, sword. Sword.